Hey guys, it's Drew again. Today I want to tell a story about how I obtained two Cornerstone cards within my collection that I still enjoy today, and how I got them for, well, honestly, practically no money, but that's the story, so let's check it out. So today I want to talk about a couple of cards that I have, two absolute blockbuster cards that are cornerstones of my collection, and how I got them in the Wild West of eBay way back when, and also a cautionary tale of even back then there was a reason it was the Wild West, because you can get burned. So let's talk about the burned thing first. So eBay back then, there was a few things that were different. So if you're not familiar or you weren't around buying cards back then, a couple of things to understand. First, PayPal didn't exist yet. When you bought something, you sent a check, you sent a money order, a cashier's check, or something like that, and you were just trusting that the seller was going to send you what they said. So there was really no buyer protection except for the feedback. The feedback meant everything. And second, there was no sniping programs. So like if it was an auction and it was just out at a certain time, then that was it. There was no like, well, I'm going to set it and forget it, and if I win it, great. That didn't exist yet. At least it was. If it was, I didn't know about it. It wasn't very public. Third, 95% of all items listed were auctions. There was not a whole lot of buy it now. So knowing all this stuff, you could kind of look around and find some different stuff, and you could really like navigate and make it a game to try to find deals on stuff where either people mislisted cards, which people still do today. The eyes on them weren't that great. You would look for certain keys and stuff to figure out. And so what I did was, I'm going to tell my cautionary tale first. So the first thing is, I was just buying anything that just sounded cool, vintage, and one of the things I would do is I would type in 1933 or 1934 Gaudi, but I would spell Gaudi incorrectly just to see if anybody had mislisted it, and pop up. And so Gaudi is spelled Goudey, and I would spell it Goudy, no E. And when I would do that, every once in a while something would pop up. Well, sure enough, a listing had popped up, and digital photography was also not as good as it is today. So a lot of times it was a grainy photo, only the front of the card. And again, you're kind of like, well, it's a low grade card, I'll pay a low grade price. Well, a Hall of Famer popped up, and I actually won the bid, and it was a 1933 Gaudi, misspelled, Rogers Hornsby, and I have that card here. And remember, the photograph was grainy and all that stuff. Well, what I found out instantly as soon as I got this card was, the reason it's grainy is because it's absolutely a fake. It is terrible fake. I'll show you how fake it is. The back of it is not supposed to be in black ink. And the second thing is, look at the cardstock. I mean, you can just see on the camera how thin it is compared to an actual Gaudi card. So, I got completely burned. Now, to be honest, I only paid 20 bucks for it. And when I tried to get a refund to say, hey, you sold me a fake, they said, there's no such thing as a 1933 Gaudi with no E. They did it intentionally, and they were scamming, and I fell for it. Well, I keep that card on display in a case as a reminder that I need to constantly learn and be on the lookout. So that's one of those stories. But the two big stories I want to talk about is, first, the first vintage set I ever wanted to put together was a 1955 Topps, and I really picked it for two reasons. The first is, it's a relatively small set, just over 200 cards. It's the smallest regular issue set that Topps ever put out, and also no Mickey Mantle. So I didn't want to have to deal with trying to figure out how to pay for a vintage Mickey Mantle, especially 1950s card. And I knew there was the rookies, but I figured I'd get to those. So as I'm going along through the set, it was time for me to try to figure out how to get the Roberto Clemente rookie. And the Clemente rookie at the time, in a lower grade, where I was collecting that set, was running, I don't know, $350, $400. So still out of my price range, but I saved, and I had about 275, but I knew I needed to kind of get lucky. And I found an auction that was going out, and a couple of things that he had done. First of all, when he listed it, he listed the end time at like 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And at that point in time, there was no sniping programs, or at least not widespread ones where you could just put it in and forget about it and see if you win it. So if you wanted to snipe at the end, you were literally sitting there waiting, refreshing your screen, by the way, before high-speed internet, so it was always like reloading, and you had to time out and know that as the seconds were ticking off, that was not the actual seconds. You were about 8 seconds off, depending on your service and all this other stuff. It was like a whole thing. But anyway, so he ended it at like 3 a.m. on a Sunday, and he had a starting bid at $250. Well, an auction back then, you didn't want to start it with a high price, because you just you wouldn't get as many eyes. People would ignore it. Well, I was waiting and seeing, and nobody had bid on it. And I remember staying up, and it was 3 a.m. and nobody had bid on this thing. And sure enough, within like 10 seconds left, I put my bid in of $275. I win it, and when I won it, no other bids against me. So I won it for $250, and it was a graded card. It's graded a 2. So I mean, I got a Clemente rookie for $250. But here's the other thing: is the only picture was the front of the card. Maybe he had the front and the back, and I knew it was a graded card, so I wasn't worried about getting scammed. But in the description, somewhere in small print, it said the winner of this lot will also receive 8 other Roberto Clemente cards. It didn't say what that was. That could have been like modern reprints or anything else. I didn't really care. I was looking for the rookie. Well, much to my surprise, when I received it, yes, I got my 1955 Roberto Clemente rookie that was graded a 2. And but back to those 8 cards. What those 8 cards were 8 other playing days Roberto Clemente cards. Now, I don't remember what the cards were. I remember a few of them. I know that there was a 58 and a 59. There was a number of them through the 60s and then a few in the 70s. I do remember 72 and I do remember the 73. And I was like, no way. Now, at the time, my focus was only on the 1955 top set and all these other great cards, and I probably should have kept them, but what I did was I sold them. I put them all up on auction as 8 individual listings, and by the time it was done, those 8 cards ended up coming in at $300. So essentially, I paid $250, and I ended up getting a Roberto Clemente plus 8 that I sold for sold for $300, meaning I was paid $50 to own this card that I still own today. So that's the first one. And the second one was when I was trying to find a playing days Babe Ruth. And I've shown this many, many times before, but I did end up with the 1933 Sonella Babe Ruth. But anyway, I found this card from a seller in Germany. And I remember messaging him back and forth about this card, and we were trying to negotiate a price. He had a buy it now on it. And his buy it now was $90. $90 for a buy it now. Now, at the time, these cards weren't selling for a whole lot more than that, especially in an ungraded form. So I asked him, you know, it's just crazy, you know, that these cards sell for so cheap. And he said these cards are everywhere. And what had happened is, again, because of eBay and all this stuff growing, people in Germany were finding these cards that they had no value to them, and finding that Americans were paying them for them, so they were selling them and shipping them over to the United States. So I had agreed that I would spend $90 on this Babe Ruth card, and then he said, well, I actually have another one, but it's not in anywhere near as good a shape. There was actually a small tear in it, and the corners are worn out. There's a little surface wear and all this. He said, if you want, I'll give you that one too for $10 more. So for $100, I got 2 playing days Babe Ruth Sonella cards. He shipped them to me, and I actually took one of them, and I ended up selling it to a friend of mine who's a huge Yankee fan, and he was more than happy to pay me $80 for the lesser condition card, which meant I got my Babe Ruth playing days card for $20. And if you total that, even though it wasn't at the same time, with the fact that I was paid $50 for this card, that's why the title of this video has to do with the fact that I got these 2 cards and I was paid $30 to get them. So there's my story. You know, those days are long gone, but there's still deals to be had out there. And it's just a great reminder that, you know, as we collect and stuff, not only do we evolve as a collector, our collections evolve over time, and even the way that you can find things and collect. There's still deals out there. Keep hunting and keep searching and tell your story, because it's just so much fun to relive these memories and see what I used to do and what I was able to do to be able to obtain what I have today. So anyway, I appreciate all your time. Until next time, you guys be good.